morning, everyone. I'm Luke O'Connell, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our architecture and introduce you to some of the concepts that Russ and Menno are then going to take you through. These are almost the building blocks that I'm going to start with. So, Menno, if you could take us to the next slide. Slow reveal. So we looked out across our landscape about 12 to 18 months ago, and there was a lot of, it's fair to say there was a lot of technology fragmentation. So this had built up over time. It was really based around market needs, market maturity, but we'd seen some major platforms take hold, but we'd also seen a lot of fragmentation. So Framework Plus was born. Framework Plus is a lightweight modular alternative technology stack to some of the more monolithic applications and frameworks that we have in Danone. So it's fair to say that you can see here this kind of hub and spoke model on the right hand side. You can see various market maturities. So some markets super kind of early maturity markets, just really getting into it. You can see on the right hand side through to markets that really are digital centers of excellence and really are leading the way in digital best practices. So we really had to design technology and architecture around that. And that's where Framework Plus came in, and we're going to build on this a little bit through the presentation, but ultimately show you how commercetools became an integral part of that. And you can actually see in the hub in the middle, on the bottom right hand side, you can see direct-to-consumer element, which is powered, of course, by commercetools. And we really see this as the mandatory, right? So whereas we have flexibility in our architecture, we really have this content profile and data core, of which commercetools plays a key part. So Framework Plus ultimately, and this is just to kind of orientate you to this, is a driver of market maturity, built with two core principles: local agility, but a central core. So we want to give markets the flexibility and the empowerment to run their own technology to a certain extent, to make their own choices. But actually, there are some really important parts of our ecosystem that we want to maintain at a global level, and that's where commercetools plays a key part, and that's where we'll see how we do that later in the deck. So if we just move to the next slide, Menno. So what we really came up with is this idea of what we didn't come up with it, but you'll have heard of the concept of Mac architecture and this modular build of our marketing technology ecosystem. And the idea behind this is we were stuck in the past with very monolithic decisions having to be made. So we're making decisions at a stack level. Does this stack of does the stack of applications work well for us? Does it fit our needs? Does it fit our market needs? And as you remember from the beginning of the first slide, of course, that then contributes to fragmentation, because you have markets saying, well, yes, I really like the commerce part of this architecture, but I think the personalization engine isn't delivering for us. And so really Framework Plus then switches this on its head and switches it to a Mac architecture, which allows us to be modular, which allows us to pull components in and out as needed, assess them individually and assess their performance individually, as well as being, of course, the halo effects of Mac architecture, which are the fact that it's lightweight, the fact that it's API first, so we can get all that good stuff. And it's very, very, very quick to deploy, which I think we'll touch on later as well. But fundamentally, I think the takeout from me as the head architect over here is that we are building a modular system. We're making impactful choices, and for commerce, we absolutely put commercetools at the heart of this, because it is through and through built right from the start to be Mac first, and it delivers that promise, and it allows our ecosystem and all the different facets of our ecosystem to talk together very seamlessly. And that's just an architecture introduction. But if anybody has any questions, you can certainly ask in the Q&A, and we can go into more detail. Thanks, Menno.
Okay, so I'm Russell. I work within Danone also. We are a business with 3 categories currently, which is essential dairy products, water, and specialized nutrition. So we look after the specialized nutrition department, which you'll probably understand most for is baby formula like Aptamil. We're a classic FMCG company with our most of our base being is retail being our customers. but we have lots and lots of markets across the world, and rather decentralized in our organization to do that. So what we needed to set up for commerce, if we go to the next slide, is a way for us to deliver market-leading experiences that are fitting for a market-leading brand, but across a lot of things, right? That includes, like, how do we have best-in-class operations? You know, we want time to delivery to be on point. We want unboxing and cost to serve to be great. But that also means data. Like, how can we have our data being collected in the right way, attributed in the right way to give great experiences or personalized journeys to our parents, and experience in totality. So with baby food, there's questions to be asked. It's the first time being a parent, potentially. You want to know what makes sense and what is it all about. So we need to make sure somehow we give some sort of curated experience that is beyond something that you might get on a partner website and something you expect from the brand. And then, as I said, because we're a global company, and technology is different around the world, and people want to own it at different degrees, we need to have this global approach. So how can we make it so that each of our markets can run at their own pace, but also work together at the same time? If we go to the next one. So when we were coming to design the commerce part of that, like, we had three clear, obvious, I think, development concepts that probably are resonate with also you, is which clearly we needed agility. We wanted that the markets are locally in control, but we're able to use global muscle. We need to use the advantage of us working together, but also the advantage of us being agile locally. We need to be future ready. So, of course, we have made our predictions of where we think commerce are going to go in the future, but we're not 100% sure it's going to be there. So we need maximum performance all of the time, no matter what direction the commerce world takes. And we need to innovate at speed. Like, the main thing about this is that we want to be able to go fast, keep up with the trends, be setting the agenda for what commerce looks like online for our category. So we need it to be contributed by multiple people, so that we can increase the ideas and how we distribute our money and the resourcing towards it. So our approach on a market level is that we have this idea of establishing a capability rather than maybe a shop. So what we do is we go to the market and we establish it. So we make sure that there's the basics in place that they're able to take an order. We like to activate our current assets. So we already have a very good digital strategy, which Luke has introduced you to from a technology perspective. So instead of activating new platforms, we just activate the ones that we already have that are already successful. Then through this agile way of working, each of the countries start launching their little initiatives, whether that be subscribe or bundles or whatever it might be. And then on the last step, we try to then integrate commerce and this proposition out to more and more of our different touch points that we either own or don't own through the headless approach. Now, to help us with this speed to innovation that I mentioned to you, I think when we were looking at this, microservices played a really key role in this. Just to be very diagrammatic about how that might look, we wanted it so that if a country like Germany was to develop something like, say, subscription, we want it so that that could be then with low cost and low effort duplicated in other countries around the world. So microservices allows us to build that microservice and then share that with maybe UK or Turkey or whoever, so that their cost to making the same innovation is much more less than what it was to do in Germany. This also helps us with things like maintenance and stuff like this, but it's a real key feature of us driving this speed and efficiency to our innovation cycle. So we have this idea called compounding development, again, which is about making sure that everyone's effort is stacked upon each other and not done individually. In the traditional development model, you might see, like here along the bottom, each market builds up their own stack over the time. So market one maybe goes live first, and then they start building all of the modules that they need. Then market 2 comes on, they start the same process, and then market 3. And you can see there's always this same starting point. So we're not getting this collective maturity, right? We're just having a same starting point each time. Maybe we know which works and what doesn't, but still the process of having to build has to be there. So we tried to move towards this compounding development idea where basically market 1 can come on board and they start building out capability. Then market 2 comes on and they already benefit from the developments that's been done before them. And then they with market 1 start building out second and third tier maturity levels. Then by the time market 3 comes on, they already have a mature commerce platform connected to our wider ecosystem with great initiatives in place. So we already start at a much more mature level as a result of this compounding development idea. And then we need to say, how do we make all these people work together, right? So there's this idea of technology, but now we have a governance problem. Do we want it so that it's centrally run and everyone feeds into us and then we feed back out? That's not in the DNA of how Danone works. We're like agile and we like to have a market-driven sort of entrepreneurial type of development. So what we have done is built this, what we're calling the community, where at the beginning in 2018, when we started this project, the line or orange line shows the Central's involvement. So our ownership of this idea and this platform was quite high. But as we've moved through the years now and this year, we've started to meet this inflection point where we have enough markets now and enough market maturity where they're now as a community driving the roadmap, they're driving how the future goes, and we can now step back and then start guiding them on different things where they can now, as a community, own the project and the whole commerce solution for themselves. So, 2 main ideas that basically we have that are built for commerce, which Mano will go into more detail about, is one, obviously, the community. Really important. This is about how do you make your organization work together? How can we not be centralized, but decentralized, work together, decide what their roadmap is, work individually or work as a group? This allows them to be more efficient. This allows them to do more development. This allows us to do multiple developments, as well as split the costs of doing such a thing. So there's no big costs for development or ideas because it seems to be shared across our market. Then we have this idea of open source, which is again speaks to the agility. How do we make it so that we can allow local countries work with their local partners to build the things that make sense for them in the time zone that makes sense to them, in the currency that makes sense to them? And so with open source, we've basically allowed it so that each market is able to work together or work on their own in the country and contribute to the wider product that we have for direct commerce. So I think Mano will go on to now talk to you a bit more about how that works. But again, we'll speak to you in the Q&A.
Thank you, Russ, for handing over. My name is Mano, working at the digital agency working for Danone. And my role is program manager, and I'm highly involved in all the projects that we run for Danone. Especially in this case, the commercetools platform and project. Since the beginning, we were the founder for the technical platform that we developed. And like Russell already mentioned, the strategy from Danone is not just a global guided platform, but also making sure that the local CPUs are able to work with their local agency. So it's basically shifting towards a more local first strategy, which also led to the fact that Lab Digital not being the only agency working on the commercetools platform, but also offering the local agencies for the local markets to be able to co-develop on the commercetools platform. So that's why we came up with the open source model. And what is important to mention is that this is not just the traditional open source model, as you already know. This is an open source model in which we allow or enable a pre-selected group of digital agencies to work together on the commercetools platform. So it's not just an open source model in which everybody can contribute, but it's basically a pre-selected group of digital agencies working with the Danone markets that are able to work on the commercetools platform, guided by Lab Digital. How does that look like? In the center of this picture, you have the commercetools platform, initially developed by Lab Digital, and later on enabling also more agencies from local markets to work together with the local market and co-develop on the commercetools platform, enabling all other local agencies to add features and improvements to the commercetools platform. How does this look like? In the beginning, we had what Russell just mentioned, the traditional development shifting towards compounding development. On the left side, you see compounding development before the open source model. Basically, when a specific market wants to have a specific feature, Lab Digital was asked to develop this. And on the right-hand side, you see compounding development after or with the open source model, making sure that specific features can be developed by local agencies depending on the specific desires and needs of the local markets. Those agencies are then guided by Lab Digital, making sure that from an architecture perspective, things are working as we wanted them to work, about offering local markets the agility that they would like to have and the flexibility that they would like to have to work with their local agency. Why do we do this? How does this look like in terms of timeline? Initially, you see the compounding development in which basically Global asked Lab Digital to develop a feature, and that has led to the fact that there's a mature commercetools platform for several markets. On the bottom side of the screen, you also see a phase in which a specific CPU can add features to the commercetools platform as well. And not only one specific CPU, but also other ones. And later on, not only making sure that they can add features that they want, but that they're also able to enhance features that are already being built either by Lab Digital or by other local agencies from other local markets. So basically what we do is open up the commercetools platform for other agencies in which they can either add new features, but also enhance or perhaps once there could be a bug or something, they can also resolve issues in current features. What does this mean? It opens multiple benefits for the local markets. It offers them flexibility and agility. They can work with the agency that they want to. It also increases development capacity, not having one specific agency, but multiple agencies that are also familiar with the commercetools platform and also the Danone platform, which basically increases the development capacity that's available. Also looking at the traditional development in which, for example, each market develops their own checkout. In this case, we have multiple agencies working on the same project, making sure that every feature that is being developed can always be used by all other markets as well, making sure that markets can benefit from functionalities that are already being developed, but also that leads to the fact that the cost per market can be reduced. And what also is important is that there is an increase in knowledge, not only in the Danone community with the markets that are working on commercetools, but also with the agencies that are working on this platform. They can also share and increase the knowledge, and also this platform makes sure that the markets within Danone share features and exchange features between markets. And this all is being guided by Lab Digital as the technical founder of the platform. That's basically it. Are there any questions?
We certainly do have questions from the audience. Hi, everyone. So good to have you all on the screen here. Shall we dive right into it? We have a first question. Do you prefer standard software or services for the different modules, or do you build those yourself?
Yeah, I think it depends, right? So we take a view that it depends on what the market needs, and sometimes we take standard things, sometimes we build it ourselves, and then deciding what works and what doesn't to scale those things up, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff out there, right? So what's important for us is we're not reinventing the wheel. We're taking advantage of the good work that vendors are doing, and we're often building on top of that, as Russ says. In very rare exceptions where we can't, where we have a real bespoke need, sometimes we do on the medical side of our business, for example, then that's when we really get to work building custom or bespoke solutions. But if we can avoid it, then we absolutely do.
Very, very good. The next question, I'm jumping a little bit here. First of all, a compliment, great presentation and clear story. That needs to be said, right? So congrats on that. Someone in the audience was wondering, how do you find shifting from the older enterprise architecture towards the more modular, leaner architecture?
Well, it's a little bit of a journey, and it's a journey. It's a technical journey as well as a stakeholder management journey, right? So technically, we're dealing with a lot of legacy systems. We're dealing with a lot of old technology in the organization. You know, we're a very old business, and then you've got the stakeholder perception of technology, and a lot of stakeholders in the business expecting wrapped services, expecting more monolithic architecture, because this is what they're used to. They're used to buying big monolithic stacks of software to deliver their needs. So for me, there's a very clear two paths to addressing that.
How do you break down the whole e-commerce product? So, for example, that's the question here. Do you have a product manager or a product owner responsible specifically for checkout, to do checkout globally, and then for the other pieces in e-commerce? Or how do you set this up? How do you split this, if at all?
Yeah, so we have, from a global perspective, we have essentially a product owner that looks after the sort of our work, and we've built a checkout that is usable across other countries. But we're also really trying to work towards empowering the markets. So we have a product owner to help coordinate, but really it's up to the markets to start building a community around making the requests, making things happen, and working together to build out the product rather than being centrally organized from it.
Markets are actually a really good keyword here. How do you balance better funded, higher priority markets with less funded markets? There must be some level of competition in a way from a business perspective. Like, how do you work with those with those kind of very monetary probably aspects?
Yeah, it's actually that's one of the key drivers of this choice, right? It's because traditionally we saw the rich markets progressing and maturing their platforms, and the poor markets, or the less well-off markets, unable to really keep up and not really able to live up to their goals. So really, what we found is that we've allowed the richer markets to drive it. They tend to come to the table with more of the suggestions. They tend to then fund more of the work and take on more of the work because their capacity and the budgetary needs. And then the other markets that can look at that and then quickly adapt and take what they need from the work that's happening from the bigger markets. From a global level as well, what we tend to do is also help support the lower markets as well. So we have two roles: one, driving us to get maturity, and then on the bottom level, we sort of support the whole organization so that it all comes together rather than just going off in shoots.
And maybe a good follow-up here: how do you handle conflicting features being developed by different markets where they have this autonomy, as you said? How do you kind of handle the situation when you have two or multiple markets, even not just two, kind of developing the same capabilities?
Yeah, I think that's the way to answer that is by saying that this is why we have the model that we do, right? So with more monolithic architecture, this is something we really struggled with, is like Russ said, smaller markets just not being able to access custom developments, or not being able to modify the stack, the larger technology stack. But actually, once it's modular and once we've got initiatives like the open source model in place, it's much easier for markets to either pull on, like Russell said, the developments of larger markets, or actually markets to design their own developments and fork features so that they can create something which is similar but bespoke to them. So it kind of gives them that maximum flexibility.
What are, and this is going to be a broad question, so let's see if we can find even a concise answer to that. What are the major challenges you faced when you transfer from legacy to microservices?
I guess compatibility and integration. So well, let me think. So data migration is always a big element of this, and always sucks up huge amounts of time. I'm guessing lots of people have found that out themselves the hard way, but also integration. If when we're in this progressive mode where we're switching from monolithic to microservices, quite often we're having to integrate with legacy systems, and integrating those two worlds can be really tricky. And it's just a question of persistence. It's just a question about business rationale. A lot of the time we go back to the table and say, hey, do we actually need this? It's a common pitfall to just say, well, we had this in the past, we should continue this, we should continue this interface or this data transfer, whatever it might be. And actually, when you go back to the rationale, quite often the business will go, yeah, we don't really use that, or it's not as important, or we could take a break from it for 6 months. So it really does, it's really about going back to the drawing board when you're faced with those challenges and saying, okay, we can overcome it, because with tech you can overcome anything. But it's do we have the the directive to do it? Is it the right approach?
Yeah, for me also very quickly is that people in the markets or the brand managers or the operators of your system don't really understand what's going on. So it's hard to explain the difference between these two things from a functional perspective for them. And that was tough.
Yeah, I certainly can relate to that. Thank you, all three of you, so much for being here, for being part of this great event today, and for sticking around.